Hello, my name is Lynn Page, and welcome to my world, the wet West Coast, the great big trees, the forest. Here I am. I've always been a bit of a ham. My first on-stage appearance was at age 4, having learned a sweet little English lullaby from my grandmother. So I was trotted out with my party piece. And then in grade school, I won the Best Dramatic Actress. I played the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. Off with their heads. Eventually, I did a lot of acting in school, in high school as well. The result of that was a scholarship to the Banff School of Fine Arts in acting. Unfortunately, my parents had a different idea about what I should do with my life. I should get a profession. There were only, 3 professions open to women at that time. And so I ended up going to Montreal as a nurse. But of course, my biggest love in music is opera. Although I have done a fair amount of solo work and even been paid, stage performances were mainly Gilbert and Sullivan. I was born right here on Vancouver Island at the very southern edge in the city of Victoria. The family arrived here in 1853 and from Scotland, where they were sheep farmers, and they became sheep farmers down on the southern end of Vancouver Island. I have 3 siblings and I'm the eldest, so we're pretty closely knit, and everybody is now back on the island. I have lived a very charmed life. I married a naval officer in Victoria, and then we proceeded to do Canada from one side to the other. And after he'd finished his obligatory tour in Ottawa, we were thrown out of the country and went to Virginia Beach. That was the first of my husband's NATO postings abroad. From there, we also went to Denmark and in Viborg, the old capital right in the center of Denmark. And then we lived just north of London. Living in Denmark and England allowed us to do a great deal of travel. My first subject was my baby sister. I photographed her, doing all sorts of things. But the picture that I remember from my very early childhood is a picture of a moon. This is black and white, of course, over my father's garage with snow. And that image has stayed with me constantly throughout my life. The peak of my career, I guess that was when I was still in Texas. I was doing a nature photography contest that ran for 6 months. I was also had a full-time job as a nursing instructor, and I was working on my advanced degree online. So I was sort of busy. I also had a photography business. It wasn't huge and thriving, but it was continual and very pleasant. So that's when I was also teaching children with my great friend Ruth Hoyt from South Texas. That was probably the height. After that, I changed life. I moved back to Vancouver Island and everything altered. But my other interests besides photography also contribute to photography. Nature, obviously, being with family when they're really far away. I do a lot of photographing of people, especially family while I'm gone. And wherever I go, if there's an opera house around, I'll be there. And I'll be taking pictures in there too, if I can. And of the outside of some of the absolutely incredibly beautiful old opera houses in Europe. I mean, they're just to die for when you get a camera in front of them. Photography also gave me one other gift, and that is that through it, I was united with a gentleman that I'm now married to, who I had met when I was in my early 30s. He had no idea where in the world I was. He knew I wasn't on Vancouver Island. We knew each other many years ago, and all of a sudden he decided it was time for him to find me. And he never would have found me if it hadn't been for my photography. He found it after searching everywhere. He didn't even know what part of the world I was in. He found an image with my name on it down in South Texas. I had sold one of my pictures to a local town, and they were using it in their advertising material. So he followed that up. He eventually persuaded them to give him my email, and that's how we got back together again. And I found it in my email, in my junk email, the day before it was going to be erased. That was back in the days when they erased such things. So I think that's rather serendipitous. We'd always enjoyed our time in Texas, so we decided to move there permanently. We left Canada behind and we were gone. We were living 7 miles from the Mexico border and traveled extensively. We found Texas to be exceeding all our expectations. It was a wonderful, friendly place. Then, of course, there was the photography, just plain photography that was going on. And we really got into that as a couple and ended up having a photography business while we were down there. Got involved in the local photography club, which was called TechSnap, Texas Nature and Education Photographers. The girl who started that club, Ruth Hoyt, she and I became great friends. So we got absorbed into the nature community, into the birding world, and into photography clubs. We were also very close to Mexico, so we spent a lot of time meandering down there. The Valley Land Fund was building a corridor of environmentally protected wildlife habitat all along the river. And then they developed a contest, and it was a method of getting people together on that topic, photographers and landowners and commercial backers. So each big ranch would have a commercial backer, and then they'd have a pair of photographers, and we photographed for the contest for a 6-month period. What you had to enter was something in every category. So there was about 24 categories of birds, and then so many mammals and turtles and everything. The ranchers learned about the wildlife that they had on their ranches, because very often they had no idea of what they had on their ranches. The photographers got to live in really great places and photograph all sorts of neat stuff. In some of the ranches, the ranch hands would be really helpful. And when they realized that we wanted snakes, they would find a snake, put it in a bucket, and we'd find a bucket with a snake in it sitting outside our motorhome in the morning. So at this point, like, what do you do with a rattlesnake or any other snake for that matter? So we'd build dioramas on a, say, 6x6 foot board, and there'd be flowers and rocks and sticks and sand and, anything to make it look pretty. And then we put the rattlesnake down on it. Now, some people might think that you would then stand there with a big stick and make the snake do something. No, you just make friends with the snake, and the snake just relaxes like a model on a stool. We found a couple of snakes on our own. The fellows found us a few more. So we had quite a lot of fun with snakes. That took us down to the Rio Grande River, where my husband and I led canoe trips. It was all part of the same thing, to try and get more people involved in the environment and protecting the environment. So we took people out on the river. We also went out on garbage collecting, trash collecting trips, and found old tires and refrigerators. Those we couldn't put in our canoe. We had to find another method. But it was lovely. And then we were instrumental in helping the development of the very first butterfly garden. It wasn't a garden per se, it was like an acreage that was protected for butterflies. And it was the first one in North America. It was there until Trump cut a hole through the middle of it for his fence. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough the importance of pursuing your passion, but also sharing it with like-minded people so that they can learn from you and you can learn from them. Oceanside photographers drifted apart during COVID because we couldn't meet. And my brother and sister are both members of Victoria Club, and they were doing Zooms, and I was suffering from several bouts of COVID. And so I joined the Victoria Club in order to attend those Zooms and keep my creative juices going and keep me alive, basically. And so joining the Victoria Club, it kept me alive through COVID years. There is certainly a great deal to be gleaned from belonging to a club of like-minded, wonderful people that share a passion with you. And I was very involved in clubs when I was in the US, including NAMPA, which is the National Nature Photography Club. So when I arrived here, I wanted another club. And Oceanside didn't have one. But after I'd been back by about a year, there were some notices in the paper. And that's how I first got involved with the club. Through being a member of the club, we ended up having a 3-woman show a few years ago. I branched out and did some more, shows either with other members or by myself. A lot of what it means to me is what I have given back to the club. I've held quite a few posts. I've filled many different positions over the years. And yes, I have given back to the club, but the club has given me so much more. And I think, especially to you newcomers to the club, what you need to do is to get involved. There are so many things you can get involved in, but get involved, give, and you will receive. If it happens to be a photography that you're interested in, there's really no better way to nurture that than being with like-minded people. If you examine any photographer way down deep inside, they're going to say that they do their best work when they're off by themselves in whatever milieu they like. For me, it's nature. That doesn't mean that you can't do it with a group. Some of my most fun shoots have been years ago when we had a really fantastic group at Oceanside. We went out every month. We buddied up, a senior, a junior, 2 Canons, 2 Nikons, or whatever. It just worked and it clicked and people learned and people really enjoyed photography. And then I had I've had more than one fantastic girl photo buddy, and we've done a lot of work together. And sometimes that gets really great results, but the best results are usually when you're by yourself. Had some absolutely fabulous people who've set examples to me so that I know in my heart of hearts that there is no reason why I can't keep on photographing until the day I die. I can go out in my backyard with my walker, if that day ever comes, and take more pictures of wildflowers. A photographer that I know well, just recently died. And in the last month of his life, he completed the calendar for 2025 so that none of his friends would be disappointed. And, if you've got a photographer's heart and you really are dedicated to it, you will just adapt. That's all, just adapt. That's one of the very strong points of being a member of the Oceanside Photography Club. There's somebody there that's either doing something that you would like to do or doing something a little differently that you do. If I were to try and think of advice that I might give others, the first thing I would say is open yourself up, find your passion and embrace it with everything you've got. I mean, let's face it, we only have one life.